Lemonade Originals.
All right, and welcome back to another episode of Lemonade's Driving Brand Growth podcast. And I'm your host, Trevor Dudeck, and I'm here with Aaron Kaufman, a good friend, and also someone we've had the pleasure of working with in a past role with Square Enix, now the director of social media of 2K core games and corporate channels. Really excited to have you here, buddy, and just thanks for spending some time with us actually on Easter Sunday here.
Well, for me, fortunately, I'm Jewish, so we do Passover. So I love and celebrate Easter with all of my friends who do. But today is actually not an Easter intercept for me. Eating my matzah, getting my matzah protein this morning. My son and wife and I, we've actually been invited to an Easter egg hunt in a little while at a friend's place. So I just love that we get to participate in everybody's culture. But I'm more than happy to be here on Easter Sunday with you.
Oh, that's awesome. Appreciate it, buddy. And how old are your kids again?
My kid, non-plural.
I thought you had two for some reason. I don't know why I thought that.
Done. There was a world where we were thinking about plural, but we're super blessed and happy to have one amazing 6.5-year-old. That half is really important. He really gets bent out of shape if you don't get the half, because he wants you to know that he's getting older and very independent. But my little boy, Riley, he's awesome. Huge into baseball right now. And as I was telling you earlier offline, he is slowly becoming a Dodger fan, which is breaking my heart because, like you and I know, we are respective Giants fans. So that's been the toughest part of parenthood lately.
Yeah, that's got to break your heart for sure.
Yeah.
What's your plan to overcorrect that, perhaps?
I mean, the Giants are 6-2 right now. I think the Dodgers are not. So there's just boasting about their record, maybe smothering social media from the Giants and their content in front of his face all the time. Luckily, he's a Cardinal in his Little League baseball league right now. So he didn't default to a Dodger, sadly not a Giant. He didn't get the pick. So there's that. But it will break my heart if I see him in the Dodger uniform at some point. So I don't know if there's much I can do. Their brains are getting shaped at 6, and you only have so much room to mold it, right? It's not like your audience that we're trying to market, something to. I can't market to my son. I mean, it's getting solidified in there.
Yeah, that's tough. I could see just everything in your being there, wanting to raise him the proper Giants fan. But you got to just let him do what he's going to do.
It's like our audiences, right? We're trying to raise our audiences to enjoy our products or our services, and they're like our little kids. And how do we grow them into adults that are going to go out there and buy it and stay invested with us on their whole lifetime journey? I've never thought of that analogy in marketing a game or building a community, but damn, that actually it feels like it makes sense a little bit.
I mean, it's funny you brought that up, and that's just this perfect transition, because I think we've done some work on audiences and sentiment analysis and community, and I know how much you spend time thinking about that, just from the work we've done together, but just because you've spent so much time developing that for various brands and titles. What is the moment right now where we are in 2022, for you, where do you feel like you spend the most time trying to kind of get the most value out of those efforts around audience development and community growth? Do you see certain rewards, from certain efforts? Is it kind of mysterious right now? What's your journey to kind of find the right solutions?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think when I first started this journey to being a social media manager, formerly known as a community manager, in 2004, back then it was all super micro communities in fan sites and IRC chat rooms and message boards, and the real intimacy of developing with your core fan, that word of mouth and the sort of the few thousands of fan level had a lot of power for your brand overall. And fast forward, that was 2004. I started my career at EA Los Angeles, 2004 to 2010, overseeing a real-time strategy game called Command and Conquer that hopefully there are some folks on this podcast that are familiar with that. It's kind of my RTS nerd days back then. And then, fast forward some 18 years later, I think what's interesting right now is everything's moving so fast. I'll never forget there was an ad campaign that Visa did a long time ago. It was like 6 or 7 years ago. And I think it was something to the effect of like stop in 6 seconds. And the human truth was, that we as humans, our attention span looking at one thing, you've got 6 seconds to capture us, whether it's a YouTube video or you're scrolling TikTok or Twitter. And this is in, I think, 2014, 2015 when they ran this campaign. And the goal was trying to come up with thumb-stopping content that could get you to look at something and be emotionally connected to it in 6 seconds. And I think they were doing these really sort of like inspiring, like adventurous journeys. And the goal was to like get you to use your Visa card. But they're trying to find content that could emotionally connect with you in 6 seconds or less. And I think that's like the beginning of where we've really gone off the ledge now, which is I find it extremely hard to build community when there is so much noise. You've got TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Discord, Reddit. Like, do you want me to keep going? That's only domestic. We haven't even gotten international to Douyin or Russian VK or, all the different services out there. And everybody's getting pelted like left and right. And so for me as a social marketer today, my goal is how can I create something that's going to get you to stop your thumb? And I think it's a real strong content play right now. We're all trying to sort of build growth, but everything I read is growth is less important than engagement. So even if you have, 5,000 people, following your YouTube channel, if you're getting 10, 20, 30,000 views a video, who cares what your growth is? You're still getting really good reach and engagement. And it's probably because you're driving shareability, you're driving word of mouth, you're creating great content. And in talking with the platforms, I was recently talking with YouTube not that long ago, and they consistently said 2 things to me. They said, yes, your subscriber growth is critical, but what is equally paramount, if not even more so, is consistency. So training the audience that you're going to post once a day or once a week, whatever that might be. And then the quality of your content, that there is storytelling. They say that, watch time now is probably the single most important metric on YouTube that really helps define the algorithm. And that's the same for TikTok. We know that, people that are watching TikToks for 10, 20, 30%, right? That starts to define the algorithm, starts to learn like what you're interested in, whether you're into funny cat videos or baseball mascots or video game clips or how to make $1 million in 5 seconds with this Amazon dropship side hustle thing, right? That I get so many of in my feed because I keep watching them.
That's what I'm doing now. I'm not doing the agency thing anymore. Just drop shipping. 100%.
So I think the kind of concluding answer here is that in today's social media, sure, growth and like building community is as critical as it always has been, but even more so is engagement and creating content that is really hitting the audience that you're after and knowing who you're going after.
I love that you mentioned that engagement over just the pure amount of volume of followers or views. And, we've always preached consistency for sure. And I think you have to break that down, right? Because sometimes it's like, okay, consistency and volume, let's just get a shit ton of stuff on our calendar. But, it can't just be basic, let's recognize birthdays or let's just, every holiday, let's make sure we do something, Sure, that stuff's easy, but, it's easy to get caught up in a certain type of consistency. Then you really have to back yourself into the quality that really matches well with that audience. And that's where you come back to going, oh, okay, we've done the work now on who our audience really is and who these profiles are. So now we can create that really consistent, well-matched content and see that engagement deliver. I mean, we're seeing it even on like really small brand new accounts that we're working on too, that might have really low numbers from like an outsider's perspective, but you can see even the ones that are engaging, they're watching all the way through, like you said, those view throughs, and they're clicking through and they're engaging or converting, whatever that conversion may be, if it's a purchase or something. So it makes a big difference. 100%.
I know we can probably, I imagine we're going to talk about TikTok here, and it's not even the new hot and shiny toy, right? Like,
right.
It's the king of the social media land, right up there next to YouTube. And I saw a really interesting video on TikTok of all places last night. No surprise. I forgot who it was. It was some independent social media marketer who was sharing something to the effect of what social media marketers need to know today about the difference between Instagram and TikTok. And this guy was showing that he duplicated his last 20 videos, 15 or 20 videos, exactly the same on TikTok and exactly the same on his Instagram. And the organic and no paid, the organic and sort of earned reach that he was getting and engagement on TikTok was, some 7 or 8 times greater than his Instagram. And the followings were very similar. And it was really interesting to me because, getting engagement on Facebook lately has been insanely hard. And we're all sort of, as sort of millennial, Gen Z, Gen Y, marketers sort of making the excuse that Facebook is limiting our reach without paid, that the demographic is getting older. And I do think that there is truth to that. And I don't know necessarily the science behind, how to get better organic reach on Facebook in particular, because I feel like I'm putting out great content there and it's just not getting the reach. But you go over to TikTok and you do something similar and you put great content, and maybe because it's, they're only a couple years in, but that reach, that natural, audience, grab seems to be significant to.
It's huge.
And I'll give you an example. So right now I'm working on a game called The Quarry. It's a teen horror thriller that is coming out on June 10th. And it's made by an amazing studio called Supermassive Games. They formerly are known for a massive hit on PlayStation called Until Dawn from 2014. And they've done a number of great games recent, including one called The Dark Pictures Anthology. And so at any rate, this game is about a group of camp counselors who are having their last fun in the sun after all the kids have gone home, and they have one night left to party. And as you can imagine, shit goes wrong. There's something mysterious, some evil lurking in the woods.
This sounds really cool.
There are things that happen, and the game is all about sort of the dynamic relationships and the choices you're going to make that determine the fate of these counselors. So we thought, how do we play with that in social media? What was our content strategy for this game was 2 things. It was really about how do we play up the personas of the counselors and sort of build fandom around each of these 9 very distinct counselors. You got like the jock, the cool kid, the pretty girl, like they're very stereotypical, kind of framed, but they're all really interesting. And then on the other hand, you have this mystery happening in this town called Northkill. And what is the big bad? Like, what is maybe killing these counselors? What is happening? Who's going to die? Who's going to live? And so on social, we came up with these different content series to kind of play with that. On our Instagram channel for The Quarry, we're doing a mix of sort of ARG-esque, sort of mysterious, what's happening in Northkill with like motion graphics and short clips. And we're really just trying to kind of play up the mystery of, getting people to guess. And we think Instagram's a great place for sort of that mystery, sort of detective pinboard-like feel. And we're also mixing in some counselor content there. But really where we're going heavy on the counselor side of things is on TikTok. Same channel name, called @VisitTheQuarry. And there we've taken our 9 counselors and we are making sort of a counselor week. This week it's Laura, next week it's Dylan, the next week it's Ryan. And throughout each of those weeks, we crafted 3 different types of ways to express who they are. One way is called Slice of Life, where we sort of juxtapose the light and the dark of the counselor. So we show them in like a really happy situation at this camp, and then we show them in a really kind of funny, memey way, content that might look like what is their fate. The other one that we do is called Meet Your Counselor, and it's a short form 30-second TikTok where it's this like happy-go-lucky, fun, like, meet Ryan. He's cool. He's awesome. He's great. And, he likes this. He likes that. And we go through that. And then the third one is a motion poster where we created these like movie poster like of each counselor to juxtapose sort of this like seriousness, kind of, embrace their look and feel. And then you see these like flashes of things that, again, are playing with what's their fate. And this content on TikTok, and there's a little, it's hard to explain in words. You got to go see it. It's got sort of some meme and some humor to it. We've done some minimal paid behind it, but we've got about, I think, 7,000 or 8,000 followers on the channel since we started a month ago. But our average reach on these videos is probably 20 to 30,000 views. And when you put some paid behind it, it really, $500 or $1,000, it really skyrockets. And so again, it's really proving to me that I feel like we're figuring out what our TikTok audience wants in this game. And, and the audience there is that, again, that kind of millennial, younger, like they can relate to these counselors. Instagram, the content's performing okay. I think we're trying to figure out some learnings from it. How do we get some better reach? But TikTok is really winning the day for us right now. And I just wanted to share that because I feel like we're getting lasered in on knowing what content is working there and trying to learn what's working on Instagram. And that's just a constant work in progress every day.
That's interesting, in particular to me too, because, we've done some work with very different games in the past where we've had success in some cases and failures in other cases with the kind of profiling of characters for a new game. Sometimes it's like, if you know the game, you're excited about it. And then other times it's like, they don't know the game yet. We notice people don't seem to care. So it's really an interesting line, right? Of like, how do you get people excited about characters in a game they don't know or care about yet? And so that's what's really cool about the story you're telling, is that you've managed to do that, right? You've managed to kind of create enough interest that even though I'm not totally invested in this character yet, because I'm not even invested in this world yet, right? You're kind of doing both in 30 seconds. So, I mean, I don't know if there's a question in there, but that's really interesting to me. And I don't know if you feel like there's something there that kind of did it for you, or if you've had that experience too, because I've definitely had some of those work and some of those not work.
Yeah, I think it's, I think the high level learning here, and I haven't done this as well in my career as I'm trying to do now. Like, I'm by no means an expert. I'm trying to learn from the best out there. I think the Netflixes and the Xboxes and the Wendy's of the world are doing a phenomenal job at understanding their channel content strategy. That it's not about duplicating what you do on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube, right? Like, you really need to figure out a sort of narrow but broad content strategy on each of these channels. And what I mean by that simply is, what works on TikTok with sort of mini short videos of these counselors could very well work on Instagram, because that stuff just kind of works, right? But the sort of playing with the mystery of what's happening in North Kill on Instagram, the way that we're doing it there, is probably not a way that's going to work for our content strategy on TikTok. So another example I would use is I'm working on a game called Midnight Suns, which we announced last summer, and the game has since been delayed. And, it's no secret that we're working on sort of like, when are we going to come back out and, share more about this game? And while I can't get into that information, I can tell you that over as many months since then, we've been trying to take key learnings from the announce of the game and try to understand, hey, what worked, what didn't. And the game sort of surprised people in that it had all these amazing, characters from the Marvel Universe that perhaps you haven't even really gotten a chance to play as in a game, like Blade, for example, or Ghost Rider. Maybe they generally appeared in games here and there, but not like you've seen them in Midnight Suns. And so we're really excited about that. But what people weren't expecting was that a lot of the game was going to be kind of done through this card gameplay. And we're really proud of that. And our studio at Firaxis is making an incredible game It's going to be awesome. So, but the reaction, it was a little split, right? Like we're looking at the sentiment, we're getting in there, we're trying to understand what portion of our audience is resonating with this gameplay, what portion of our audience is resonating more with the characters, and taking those learnings and thinking about when we come back out and start to remarket this game again, and we think about how do we sort of, glamorize and profile these Midnight Suns. On one hand, you have an audience that, they're really into the story and the universe. And once they play the game for a little while, they're going to be locked into that card gameplay, right? But to kind of get them into the funnel first, we need to show them what they can aspire to. They show them the awesome cinematic combat and the storytelling. But then you've got the fan who has been playing Firaxis games forever. So Civilization, XCOM, hardcore strategy fan, this person, they're like, show me the stats, let me nerd out on that. Show me the card gameplay. And so if we think about those two sort of audiences, and maybe our partner in Marvel as an example, one strategy we could be looking at is a subset of our marketing. We direct maybe more at broader channels, say the Marvel channels, right? And another set of our audience that we're trying to be a little more hardcore and, nerd with, that are more of our inner, they're already in the funnel and we want them to be sort of word of mouth champions. Perhaps we use our own Midnight Suns channels and our own, Firaxis Studio channels, but we have a deliberate content strategy on each. Whereas, we're not just going to put everything in the same place. And so I think that's what I'm trying to really get better at right now as a social marketer, understanding the channel, the audience, and the content that's going to work on that channel.
When you're kind of putting that matrix together, which we're all always trying to do and get better at, what helps you on the side of kind of staying on top of trends and just being current? What do you use? Is that a gut thing for you? Is it kind of staying on top of it via tools and kind of technology? What for you kind of allows you to feel dialed in and then use that insight to drive their strategy?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I'm really fortunate to have an incredible insights team here at 2K. And I've been fortunate in that I've worked with some great insights teams, since my days at EA. I think when I'm developing the social strategy with my team for a game, one of the first areas that we go to is the audience research study that really helps set up the marketing of this game. So again, for this game, Midnight Suns, while I can't get into the weeds on what the research is saying, I can tell you that the research is informing us that for this particular audience who's going to go out and purchase this game, YouTube is a major area where we need to reach them. So my social strategy then is to think about, okay, we're a little weak on YouTube right now. We're kind of heavy content strategizing on, say, our Twitter or Instagram. Guys, we need to be more YouTube first. So we need to come up with content series. We need to come up with, character profile videos, combat videos, tutorial. We need to think about working with our influencer team and how do we get creators on board to perhaps, create content on our behalf that we can share back and forth. And a lot of that thinking is coming out of the initial insights and research that's informing me that, hey, the demographic you're trying to reach, this is where they're living. So that's kind of that's one major area. I think a second major area, a lot of it is gut. I definitely frequent Ad Age and Ad Weekly and Mashable and Social Media Examiner and Tube Filter. And, I look at a lot of these sites that are sort of aggregating incredible, marketing campaigns and content. And I use a tool called Notion. It's sort of my, Notion's like a Evernote or Asana and one of those. Notion has a really cool Chrome extension like Pocket, where if I see something really awesome on the internet, I just click my little Notion icon and it saves it to this ever-growing database I have of just cool shit. And I try once in a while to go and label it so I can go in there and just type Wendy's or Netflix or
I love that.
And maybe it's not the prettiest thing, but 4 or 5 things will come up and be like, oh yeah, Wendy's did that Nuggets for Carter thing, or roast Wendy's, or that was the time that Ryan Reynolds took that funny Deadpool photo with Bernie Williams. And so I have my own sort of, method of chaos of trying to you're seeing so much cool shit on the internet, bringing it to a place that I can constantly go back to and get inspired by. So that's, I think, between looking at sites and that works. And then I think the third and final thing is, and it's a question that I use a lot in interviews, which is what brand is inspiring you right now, right? How big of a finger on the pulse do you really have? Are you spending time following brands on Twitter, on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc.? And even in addition to that, creators, right? Creators are really defining the marketing path. Just yesterday, Mr. Beast, who we all know, he put out a tweet basically saying, I'm looking for somebody to help create, I think it was a TikTok or I'm looking for a TikTok or YouTube content strategist. And he just put out a note to the world looking to bring somebody in. And that's amazing that he himself, the king of content, is going out to the world and trying to use them to hire somebody. And again, I think, finger on the pulse by following brands that inspire you to understand, what they're doing, but also looking heavy at creators and just trying to take a cue from them on consistency, authenticity. So those are sort of the three methods of chaos, I suppose.
I love that. Yeah. And I love the last one too, because I do the same thing. And I do all of those things you mentioned as well, always trying to save stuff and, come back to it and, think, okay, this is going to be good for something, or this is kind of part of another idea that's shaping up somewhere. I'm going to want to come back to this inspiration. And then creators for sure. Definitely with Mr. Beast as well. And, he people like him are a great example of how creators are launching their own brands. They're launching their own products, the evolution of sort of that whole situation, is interesting. And that even leads me into what, I'm probably going to ask you a little bit about, which is Web3 and kind of where all of that's going. And, which is, a big passion of mine. But I think, it's an interesting topic, not just around games and NFTs. And obviously that is a whole conversation all its own, but just the idea that I think is really cool around, there was this kind of period over the past 5-10 years where it just started to become really cool to be a creator, right? But 5 or 10 years before that, if you would have told someone you wanted to be a creator, and my timeline might be a little off, right? But that wasn't so much of a thing, Now it's one of the number one job titles kids want, right? People want to be an influencer. And now there's sort of this evolution I see happening where, people are using the models, the kind of decentralized models of, NFTs and kind of what they can do with blockchain technology to start companies, to explore their creativity. And so I think it's interesting to kind of see what that's going to do to just what we're all used to and how we engage with communities and with fans. And, being aware of all of that as marketers is just such an important topic. But I guess I'm curious from your perspective, what's on your mind with that, and kind of where does that intersect with, where you see the industry of gaming going?
Oh man, that's a big question.
It's a big question, I know.
Yeah, I can start it from an interesting place, and I had to kind of, I cheated. I pulled it up to remind myself. I fully admit, but just on the name and some of the details. But I think an interesting sort of microcosm of where the industry is going is my former boss, Shannon Studstill, who's one of the most incredible, female woman, gaming leads that the industry has seen. She's one of the founders of Santa Monica Studio. We worked together for 8 years, helping to bring God of War, to market with just, hundreds of incredible people at the studio that she really helped lead. And she really recently left to sort of take a break and kind of reset. And she's, kind of come up for air with a company called Luda Projects. and they're working on this game called Neo Fairies, which is really being created by what's called a DAO. And a DAO, and I'm still trying to understand this, but it's essentially what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a collective of people that are all sort of like, if you have a board of directors that's running a company that's 12 people, well, a DAO might be 5,000 people who are all part of a single collective that are getting to define a game or a project, and everybody is contributing, and perhaps this project is on the blockchain. There's NFT ties. It's all a little bit fuzzy, and I'm trying to get it, but maybe I just articulated it in an okay way.
Yeah. No, you did, for sure. Yeah. It's kind of like they're comparing it to like the next evolution of like an LLC or a corporation. It's just a way for everybody to really have not just, shareholders, the way we think of old stuffy, boardroom men shareholders. It's like, it's a way for the community and the players and, the participants of products and services to be real shareholders and voters in a company, which is a really cool idea. I mean, there's still a lot to get figured out with it. And I think everybody admits that, but it's a really cool idea. And I think the companies that are starting and deciding to become a DAO from the get-go are, committing to a road that is untraveled, and there's innovation, and innovation isn't always pretty, but it's going to be something that, you want to be a part of the right side of history, I think. And it's going to be interesting to see how that shapes up.
So what I'm trying to kind of figure out, and this is kind of conversation for the room, and anybody that's listening, which is, Ludo projects that my former boss Shannon is starting, which, is a DAO, or they are creating DAOs. And this first one is called Neo Fairies, which is going to be a collective, owned by as they say, a creator-led DAO is basically making this game, but, it's through the Ludo projects platform. So I understand that in concept, and it looks incredible. But then I also think about like, okay, in the last 15 years, we've seen the rise of Minecraft, the rise of Roblox. You can even go to incredible games like Little Big Planet. These three games, the one thread that they have synonymous is they all give tools to creators to create their own thing and then put them back into a marketplace. In today's world, creators can make their own marketplaces within a game to make money. In yesterday's world, it was just all about like creating mods and having just like a free for all, UGC market. You download like Little Big Planet. I don't think there was a world where you would have to pay to like download and play somebody else's level. But I totally support the notion that like if someone's going to use my game, my platform to create something that is a work of art and that could be a game in and of itself, I do think that there should be a shared revenue together. And so I fully support the Minecrafts and the Robloxes and the Ludo projects of the world. I'm just trying to understand, on one hand, you have a game in Minecraft and Roblox that's like, here it is, it's in a box. We've already created the tech, the hardware, the service, and everything. Create within this box. Over here, you've got like a technical DAO where it's sort of like undefined and creators are coming together to create the box that the game is going to be inside of, if that makes sense. And so I don't know if both are kind of doing the same thing. Like, is Roblox, is Roblox effectively just a DAO with a stronger fence around it? Or is that different than, games that are being made on the blockchain right now? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think the interesting thing, and really like kind of the problem that a lot of companies in the space are trying to solve, is interoperability. And that's like the big thing you'll hear, Zuckerberg talk about, like him or not, even he is talking about. Whether he's showing actions towards that or not is a different story, but he's talking about how important that's going to be. A lot of people are talking about that narrative. And essentially it's just saying there's lots of companies building lots of different things, whether that's an individual game on an individual blockchain where those assets or NFTs can't necessarily be transferred to another world and another chain. And some of them can be transferred to some others, right? But none of them can go to everything. but ultimately that's where it's trying to go. And that's kind of the promise. That's kind of what the future holds, is the idea that if I buy this thing in one game, I can bring it to any other one that I might go into. And essentially, that's what should cut down on the kind of microtransactions that gamers have gotten kind of screwed with forever, right?
Right.
In terms of that narrative that I think is totally true, in terms of gamers feeling like this is just another opportunity for a microtransaction,
Right.
and so it's not totally there yet. And I think that's why oftentimes there's kind of this, pushback from traditional game community. And they're right in a way because it's just not all built. But I think what is really cool is that it is innovation happening in front of our eyes. And so essentially you have the examples you mentioned is DAO over here that's creating a game and a platform to create other games. You have individual games being created like Minecraft and whatnot. Ideally, they're all going to be able to work together. You're going to be able to trade assets between each other. And at that point, it all becomes a situation where we all go into it saying there's abundance for all, there's community that can be connected to all, and everybody can win, essentially. That's kind of a big message of Web3, and it's obviously not as much of a message of kind of, corporate America. So I think that's where a little bit of rub comes in. But I do think that there is a way that can work personally. And I think that's where the more that innovation gets pushed towards these brands and these startups working together and established legacy brands working together to try and connect more things versus silo them, the better off we'll be. Because I think what we've seen with, walled gardened social channels, right, is that the more that they're walled off, the less opportunity we have, not just as like advertisers, if we're being selfish as two advertisers in the room, but as users ourselves, we can't transfer things as easily between platforms, even if I just want to tell a story about my birthday, right? So I think all of that becomes easier, as those platforms get adapted to a Web3 environment as well, outside of just gaming. So,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the NFT thing is, I think we all have the same, thought here, which is no matter what you want to call it, if you're going to do anything with NFT or blockchain for gaming, it has to bring value to the player. It can't just be, a skin or, just a basic commodity. Like there has to be either some
utility,
gameplay value to it. There's got to be a reason to care. Otherwise, it does just feel like you're trying to make a buck off the player in just a different term, right? Like what's the difference between, an NFT skin and just a skin that you get for pre-ordering the game? Well, maybe one, costs money and the other is free because you bought the game. So, there's a million different ways you can slice and dice it, but at the end of the day, I think gamers, it's different than brands like Coke or Nike or shoe collections and stuff where there isn't that natural expectation or attachment that I get to functionally do something with this NFT. And I do think on the other half, on the non-gaming brands, I think a lot of brands are getting it right where they're using NFT either for charitable donations through OpenSea, or they're using it. I think Coke did one recently where it was X amount of NFTs for all downloaded, something to that effect. They're going to donate money to X charity. I'm kind of like slicing that in a horrible way, but you get the point. And I think that's
totally agree. The big brands can afford to like give them away for free even, which they should. And like, that's what we're consulting with people on is like, don't come here to extract liquidity out of this market, come here to use it as a way to engage with your community in a way you've never done before, give them some value or utility like you're talking about, something they, haven't had access to before, or something that's going to give them, maybe kind of some exclusive, cool access that you'll then be able to add on top of. And that's kind of the cool thing is that, you can come back to that and be like, hey, this thing that you've now got, we're going to come back and add value to it every year. We don't know what yet, but that's okay. You win some points as a brand just by saying that we're making a commitment to this, and we're making a commitment to you as a customer. So I think there's some really cool experimental space there that consumers are rewarding brands for. But if they're clear in their goals, and if they're transparent in the fact they may not have it all figured out yet, but if they're clear that they're not just here to, extract money. So I agree with you.
One of the coolest things I've ever seen was actually done through St. Jude Hospital. I have a really, really great friend of mine, a guy named Jason Heitman. He's an incredible individual, incredible, he doesn't know it sometimes how good he really is at social marketing and just player engagement. And he works within a very small team at St. Jude in their gaming division, who, the likes of Dr. Lupo and folks are always, raising funds for, and as we all should, right? It's an incredible hospital and curing cancer in kids and all that, just extremely, extremely meaningful. And one of the coolest things that he really helped, I think, co-lead, if not lead outright, was this thing called the Hall of Heroes. And it was a virtual reality experience where they honored certain kids who with disabilities, and they kind of iconicized them into these Romanesque statues, right? Like these kind of heroic statues that you in a VR experience could go into and look at them in VR and read about their stories. And I think there was a gameplay element associated with it, but it was really, really incredible. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, if a gaming brand wanted to somehow connect, perhaps like an NFT idea to that, how cool would it be if like each of those kids and their statues was turned into an NFT, but it was something connected back to a game where anytime this thing was downloaded or used or commented, I don't know what the mechanic would be, but some way, somehow, that there's an NFT connection where this NFT is used through a game, and every time it's used, $1 goes back to the charity associated with that kid or back to St. Jude. And so, I'm just kind of riffing here, but yeah. I just remember that distinctly. And that's a couple of years ago now, a year and a half. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how can you take ideas like that and use NFT in a way that doesn't have to be charitable, but again, it has to have value. Like, I have to care about it. I don't want to have just this invisible thing in my invisible baseball card collection closet. Like, I'm not an NFT collector. I don't emotionally connect with it, but I can totally see how people do. I'm the kind of person that likes my, my collection, right? I like to hold it in my hand.
Well, and I like the physical things too. I talked about that a little bit too. I got my Legos and the memorabilia stuff behind me too, baseballs and stuff like that. But I think some cool things to me are the IRL and digital that are being connected through NFTs and smart contracts in general. So that's what's going to be interesting. And I think a lot of collectors of physical items are starting to see value in that. How can this thing that I physically get to keep, whether it's like a limited edition alcohol or whether it's a baseball or a Pokemon card, get some proof on the blockchain that it's legit, it's not a scam, and help me trade it if I want to trade it, or just know that it's legitimate. How can I get that kind of attachment to my physical item? And I think that could be a whole other conversation, but I think to me that's just a really, really cool piece of it. And I'm not a huge collector in general, but I think for the people who I know that are, I can see how big that piece of the industry is going to be for sure.
I hope so. I mean, I hope in a way that it sort of rears its ugly head and turns into something that is seen as great technology, because the literal technology of what an NFT or the blockchain is and what it could be for gamers if fully realized. I mean, there's no debating how powerful that technology is. It's just someone needs to figure out, someone needs to be first, and it's not going to be me or, anything I'm working on right now, but someone needs to be first to how to do it in a way that makes people feel connected and like, whoa, that's awesome. Like, I feel like I want that.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard for sure. And I think in many ways too, like a lot of the blockchain space needs some rebranding. There's just parts of it that are complicated and too complicated, and for mass adoption to happen, there's just a lot of things that, like as we start to break it down and talk through it, it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense, but without that, you can just see it on the surface level and go, oh, okay, that's just a way to extract money from people. And a lot of times it may be, a lot of these projects are, so it sucks that it is that way at the very beginning of anything that is, trying to disrupt. But I think, as I said, if someone can, if we can all help to rebrand and kind of reshape and do good, then I think it can head in the right direction.
Yeah.
I know we're running up on time, so I'm gonna give you a few quick fire questions here, and then we'll wrap up. So I'm gonna give you some kind of fill in the blanks. I'm gonna give you the beginning, and then you fill in the end. Okay?
Man, I do these to people too. Now I'm getting the fire thrown back at me. All right, let's go.
All right. All right. I'm most excited about.
Oh man, what do I want to say about? I'm most excited about the social media strategy that my team and I are going to do for games that I cannot talk about at 2K.
Oh, leaving us hanging there. Good one. This is good. I'd love to have the opportunity to work with
Wendy's.
Nice. I just love to have a Wendy's hamburger today. I'm easy.
You can solve that pretty easily for yourself.
See, I set my goals really achievable. Yeah. For me, a perfect Friday night is
wine and a great steak and watching a great movie or TV series with my wife.
Awesome.
On the couch.
Of course. Of course. I'm really good at
networking. I think I'm really good at engaging and connecting with people and finding the threads, the 6 degrees of separations to turn a networking relationship into a potential, big or long-lasting something or other.
I agree.
Thank
Definitely.
You.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
that's why we're here together.
Of course, absolutely. I'm really bad at
handwriting because I'm just typing too much. So, no.
Me too. I suck at handwriting so bad. I realize it every time I write. I'm like, I don't write anymore, and it looks so horrible.
I'll give a real one that I'm sure listeners can relate to. I'm really bad at turning off. It's definitely a problem right now. It is definitely in social media marketing land. You feel that addiction to want to always be on, phone stuck in hand. And I fully admit I am very bad at turning off right now, and I need to fix that.
Yeah, I think we're all trying to work on that one. Yeah. And I think the more we admit it, the better we will get at working on it. So
let's have some kumbaya about it, and just the 4-hour work week. Not realistic, I don't think, whatever they call it, maybe 4 days a week. I don't know about that, but
I know
holding to 40 hours and like truly holding to 40 hours as best you can. That's where we need to start getting to.
Yeah. And I think it starts with like setting reasonable goals. I always put way too much on my to-do list, Totally. That's a big part of it, right? It's like, just give yourself 2 or 3 things each day. Just any more than that, you're asking for trouble.
That's true.
I would say, okay, the next one was blank is really amazing and doesn't get enough credit. It could be a person, company, a thing.
I'm going to go this isn't really going on a limb, but I'm going to say Lionsgate. They have an incredible TikTok that I've used in presentations, and I think, between Skittles and Vancity Reynolds and Xbox and Among Us and Burger King and all the like they're right in there, and they deserve more eyeballs, especially to their TikTok page. I think it's phenomenal. Just go check it out.
I've seen some of their socials too. Whoever runs some of their just conversational social copy is really funny too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's a good reference. Last one. If I was stuck on an island, the 2 things I would need are
my phone and my wife and son.
There you go.
I'm just going to assume that there'd be food and water there, so I'm not going to say that. But as long as I have my family with me and I have a way to reach the rest of the world, I'm good.
I mean, I didn't give you any rules, so
yeah. True. Yeah.
Do whatever you want. All right, bud. Well, we'll cut it off there. I appreciate your time so much, and
me.
Been a ton of fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, I hope I gave at least doing these things. You always hope there's like one nugget that somebody can take away. The other 99% is probably a bunch of bullshit, but. Anyways, I hope it was invaluable for you and anybody who's listening, and big fans of what you guys are doing at Lemonade. I love you guys and can't wait.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon.
All right. See ya.
Thanks.
Lemonade Original.